Our solution is that you know who you are. You go and do the internal work that allows you to tap into your superpower. And we want you to be able to learn how to gather feedback and then validate yourself and recreate your brand if necessary. So Gwen is going to start out by walking you through a piece of the internal work that we do with clients that begins with that process of reclaiming and owning your personal power. Gwen?
Oh,
I think we lost Gwen's audio. Okay, I think you're back.
I took several long walks and I met myself in Paris. I love this quote, which comes from one of my favorite movies, Sabrina, because it really speaks to the ability to get away and to spend time with yourself, reflecting, remembering, resetting. And that's what this is really about. So getting to know yourself is critically important as you continue to grow and as you continue to know who you are and how you best contribute to life, to who you want to be, to what you want to do. So a lot of times we don't spend a lot of time with ourselves, and particularly with all that we've got going on around us, there are a lot of competing noises that really are getting in our way of really just inhaling and exhaling and just being still. We are so much in the mode of doing that we really just have stopped being. And so until we do that, until we can take a pause, it will always be difficult to really tap into the essence of who you are to really understand and to know. And so that's why I want to talk about emotional intelligence, because it is, in my opinion, foundational for everyone who is walking around this world to really understand the core, the essence of who you are. So Socrates, I believe, said it best when he says, I think we can advance. Okay, we'll go ahead and talk about our assessment inventory first. So we're going to go ahead and figure out, how do you seek feedback? How do you understand your values and your purpose, your reach? Spending time with yourself. Sorry about that. Sounds like we're having just a little bit of feedback here.
Fix that.
All right. Does that sound better to everyone? Sounds better to me. So we'll just move on then. So being able to spend time with yourself really helps you to understand not just what you do well, but what you do well with passion, with love. It's who you are. It's what you can do all day and just forget that the day has gone by. So again, we want to enhance our EQ, and we want to learn and to grow. So one of the things that we want to talk about is, when you enhance your EQ, is that it really does help determine your success. One of the things that is really important to know, in the past, a lot of organizations would actually pull people in and hire them based off of IQ, their intelligence quotient, how smart they were. But what more and more people are finding, and people at top organizations and top leaders, you might get hired and pulled in the door for your IQ, but what is going to move you up and out within the organization, and even within your points of passion, will be how you interact effectively with others and how well you know yourself. So EQ, emotional intelligence, is one that really helps, is a highlight that you definitely want to have in your growth toolbox. So there are 4 components of EQ. The first 2 really speak to our personal competence. So self-awareness and self-management. And then we have the other that speaks to our social competence, which is our social awareness and relationship management. And all 4 of these must be in play in order for us to say that we have EQ. EQ, in simple terms, is really just knowing your own emotions and really the emotions of others. In simple terms, that's how you define EQ. And so starting with the personal competence of self-awareness, who are you? What are your triggers? Those types of things that really speak to self-awareness are really key and really important. And then we move on to self-management, which really just speaks to how well you manage those emotions in the moment when they come up. So how do you show up? What does that look like? And once again, what are those triggers? Social awareness really is the beginning of building that social network. And notice that self-awareness and self-management really speaks to, first of all, knowing self first before you can really think about building relationships of sustainability, relationships that really matter. And it's that whole airplane mentality. We've got to put the mask on ourselves first before we can even think about helping someone next to us. So again, investing in self, taking that long walk. It might not be in Paris, but being able to take a walk with yourself to know who you are, to understand what your self-awareness looks like and what it means, and also how you manage these emotions. As you walk through, what are those things that excite you? And what does excitement look like in your being? What are those things that trigger you perhaps in a negative way? And then how do you manage that appropriately? So these 4 components of EQ are really, really key and really important. Remember, all 4 cores must be in play in order for you to say that you have good, solid EQ. So you might be high, let's say, in self-awareness, but if you don't manage your emotions appropriately, if that is really very, very low, then you really don't have a really good blended or balanced understanding of emotional intelligence.
To feedback. And Gwen just went through the know yourself piece, and we're now in the assess yourself piece. And the issue with feedback can be that you're not getting the feedback you need, you don't know how to ask for it. And to be sure that we're all on the same page, when we say feedback, we're talking about constructive feedback, constructive communication that's honest and that you can act on. And there can be different reasons why you aren't receiving it. It could be the culture. It can be that you have a conflict averse manager, and this is huge. People don't like to share information that they think people don't want to hear, so they're afraid of the blowback. Maybe you're not asking for feedback, or maybe you're not recognizing it when you get it. Years ago, I was a recruiter, and there was a woman who repeatedly applied for promotions in her department. Every time she applied, she was turned down. And the feedback that she received was that she didn't have a college degree. So this woman went back, got her college degree, and subsequent to that, applied for a promotion. And once again, she did not get it. And I was the recruiter who had to give her that information. And I went a little further and I told her the truth, that it wasn't because she didn't have a college degree, it was because she didn't have good communication skills, but no one ever told her that. So you may, well, what is true is that we're always getting feedback, always. And you may just not recognize it, or you may not recognize it because you're not being told the truth. So what to do? We came up with feedback loops, creating your path of motion for success. And the loops are the groundwork loop, the reinvention loop, and the branding loop. Now, Gwen touched on the internal piece of laying your groundwork. Then there is the gathering intel piece of it. You want to know as much as you can find out about the company you're in, the department that you're in, and you want to know, okay, who's successful in the company? How does the company define success, or the department that you're in? And this is really key. Your loyalty. We split out a difference between loyalty and commitment. They overlap, but your ultimate loyalty is to yourself. Don't get that twisted. Your commitment is you signed up for a job, and you signed up to do a job, and you should give it your best. But always remember that your ultimate loyalty is to yourself. You want to build as many relationships as possible that are beneficial, not just from a one-sided, lane, but that two-way beneficial relationships. And so most of us hate that word networking, but all that is about is building relationships. And you want to do that from an internal and external perspective. So when you are looking at inside of your company, the main focus is your boss, your boss's boss, your boss's peers, your peers, and your key business partners. But you don't want to stay in your bubble, not even departmentally. We saw where departments had these loyalties within, and it could hinder interdepartmental communication. Again, remember, your ultimate loyalty is to yourself. So you want to have relationships across divisions in the company, outside of the company, so that you can find mentors, coaching, get counseling. Be careful about the proprietary information you share. And you can make networking easier by doing it through joining affinity groups, joining shared interest groups, joining a book club. You'd be surprised, because the world is small as to the kinds of people and relationships that you can build through something that you actually enjoy doing. Okay, so our technical, here we go. And you want to be sure that in being loyal to yourself, that you do a few things. Document. We cannot tell you, I don't know how important it is to document. Document significant conversations that you have while you're engaging in work. For those of you who know your countries, you know that Switzerland is the country of neutrality. Be as neutral as possible. Yes, you will develop loyalties within your company, but again, don't get so loyal that you are misusing loyalty to the detriment of yourself. So you want to keep the main thing, and that is your personal success. Again, ask for feedback, ask for the truth. Now, that's all you have control of. We focus a lot of what's in your personal sphere of control. And you can ask. If you don't receive it, that's still information. Document that. Now, from time to time, I hope this hasn't happened to any of you, but it can happen to the best of us, that you may fall off the track. Something may go wrong. You may step on somebody's toes. Maybe you don't do something as well as you could have, or the results don't come out in the way that you want them to. And so maybe you've fallen professionally and you feel like you can't get up. This taps into the final loop, the reinvention loop, where in the real world, crap happens. So what do you do about that? We tag this reading between the lines. You may not be actually told all the ramifications of what has occurred, but you can work through this. There are things that you can do. Even if getting the feedback about your status is difficult, try to find out as much information as you can. How bad is it really? Because we can beat ourselves up and make things to be worse than they actually are. So that's when those relationships that you've established come in. Those internal and external relationships where you can get a bead on what's actually going on with what you think is so terrible. You will have some emotion around it. Allow yourself to feel the feelings. It's all right. But put a timer on that pity party and get back to the business of getting yourself straight again. Ask questions. Maybe it is something that actually went wrong and you were responsible for it. That's okay. Follow your sword. Do what you need to do to make things right. The final thing here, go to HR. And we say that with a caveat. All three of us came out of HR and we are HR advocates, but you need to remember that HR is ultimately accountable and loyal to the company, not you. So go to HR with the intention to get more information. Don't lay all of your cards on the table. Try to keep that as neutral and objective as a conversation as possible. And then after you've gathered all of your information, make an assessment. Can you rehab in place? This is where the triage comes in. Can you rehab in place, or do you need to exit stage left? And whether things are going well or things are going not so well, you want to do branding. You want to let people know who you are, not only by what you say, but how you show up. And that takes us into the branding with Tonya.
Yes, you have a brand, whether you know it or not. If you are not branding yourself on purpose, then you are being branded by default. Yes, people make up what they don't know. And it is so important that you are positioning yourself and branding yourself on purpose. And using feedback to your advantage is actually the most clever way to brand yourself. And a lot of people overlook it or don't really understand the power that they have in their hands once they've received feedback and really how to apply it. So let's talk a little bit about branding yourself. First of all, branding is not what you may think it is. It's not how cute you are or how your hair is styled or, your outfit or any of those external things. That is really how you package to some degree your brand. And then when we think of branding in a commercial sense, our minds tend to sometimes go to things like a logo or a website. And even personally, we may even think of our social media profiles, our feeds, our LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and those things are external as well, and they're more along the lines of your messaging of your brand, but it's not your actual brand. Your actual brand is your true identity. It is really who you are. It's the authentic you. It's who you are deep down inside that's bursting to come out in some cases. It's it's your purpose, it's your passion, it's your energy and your vibe. It's the true you, and a lot of us sometimes don't show up as our true selves. We mask ourselves because of the environments we're in, and we're going to talk about how we unmask ourselves. So I have 7 critical components that over the years I have coached people as a career coach, and I consider these to be distinguishers in building your personal brand. And a lot of these come from actually the feedback that you receive. And what I do like about these, even though the list is not exhaustive, there are probably other components that you could add or develop or grow in that will also improve your personal brand. But these I have found to be the most drastic, and they really produce what I have seen to be the most immediate impact and result. So the first one is the ability to self-promote. So self-promotion is not bragging. It's how you show up. And it's not arrogance, especially if you can back it up. So a lot of people feel some type of way or maybe frown when you talk about self-promotion, and they look at it in the extreme of being arrogant. But I look at it as self-advocacy. And it's a way, and there's an art to it, of really saying, I'm that good without saying I'm that good. So you do have to work at that, but it is key to really, getting yourself out there, especially if you feel that you're being overlooked or that you really are not being seen or heard. You're doing great work, but you don't feel that it really is being viewed as such. So self-promotion could be a key factor there and a skill for you to develop. The second one is connecting. And Rene talked a good bit about connecting and who needs to be in that circle. The piece here is that I want you to really focus on doing it. A lot of people know that networking is the thing to do, but they may have some type of a fear of actually doing it. When you look at networking from the perspective of true connection, it changes it just a little bit and makes it easier. So focus or view that networking piece as connecting. And when you connect with people, trust issues, especially if you've gotten feedback about trust or being a part of a team, focus on connecting more and connecting deeper to move that feedback into action. The third one is expertise. So I really, really want to hone this one in because a lot of people think that because I have the experience, I'm the most qualified or the best for the job. And really, I myself was a hiring manager for years. I looked for expertise and I looked in that for results. So experience, yes, but I needed to know the results. And results can be substantiated in percentages of increase. Let's just say if it's sales, or it could be decrease, and savings if we're trying to save money, or it could also be in results that you can qualify and substantiate. It's just amazing the resumes that I reviewed in my tenure in my different roles. And even now as I coach, it's really just a job description. It doesn't really bring to light what the results were of your experience. And so I always pose the question, are you adding value? And so that's a great question to ask yourself and to also reflect in any feedback that you're getting. Does it show where you're adding value? And so a lot of times we'll look back, 3 years ago to what I did, or even 5 years ago, but really it's, are you adding value today? It's current. And so in the last 6 months, in the last 12 months, what do I have? What have I done that I can substantiate with a percentage or some type of a statistic, or some type of a result where I can point to and say, this is what I accomplished this year. So be very focused on your results, not so much the experience. And that is the differentiator there. The next one is confidence. So I'm going to talk a little bit in depth about confidence, because this is fundamental to really, and it provides great, what I consider to be dynamic tension for all of the other components. Because if you have confidence on lock, you can really move through the others with really a really good focus and a good foundation. So confidence attracts people to you. And when you're not confident, it will repel people from you as well. And so confidence, when I think about confidence, I look at the root factors of confidence, and it all begins sometimes with our mindset. And so mindset is what I have found in working with people will trip them up. It will cause them to shrink and not be as confident as they really should be. There are a lot of limiting beliefs that cause sometimes your mindset not to be exactly where it should be. And those limiting beliefs are just thoughts or beliefs that you have that you believe are true for you or for whatever that situation is. And a lot of times it's things that we've been told or just how we were raised or socialized. I can remember saying things about, oh, I just don't do that. And it was because my grandmother had told me, we don't do that. And there was no good reason for me now, not to do whatever it was. But that was the mindset block for me. And a lot of mindset blocks are rooted in fear. And it's sometimes the fear of, am I going to be embarrassed if I say this or do this? Will it be well received? Will they talk about me or say something about me? So it's the fear of what could happen. And in most people that I've worked with, it's really the fear of being great. It's your fear of your greatness, because then they're going to say, who do you think you are? And so what's so bad with that? Nothing at all. But if you do not focus on your mindset blocks and those limiting beliefs, they start showing up as perfectionism or imposter syndrome, or it could be analysis paralysis. It's those things that keep you stuck from really flourishing into really who you are, your authentic self. And that's what connects people to you. So do not let those mindset blocks trip you up and keep you from being the most confident person that you can be. Mindset is what separates the best from the rest. I saw that yesterday. A pastor posted it on a Facebook page, and I thought, hey, that flows with what I'm talking about, and it's so true. So if you have not done the mindset work, or if you recognize yourself in any of those, and that's not an exhaustive list of those limiting beliefs, but really focus in on that and really identify what keeps you blocked or stuck, and begin to raise your hand and ask questions or give answers, and just step out of that box and don't allow yourself to shrink because of that. Number 5 is EQ and consistency. Gwen talked at length about emotional intelligence. The piece here and how it connects with your brand, it's the interpersonal or those relationship management pieces, those transactions. With your brand, it's so important to be really tuned into how you make people feel when they're in your presence and how they feel when they leave your presence. And so, do they feel acknowledged? Do they feel validated? Do they feel accepted in your presence? Or do they feel drained when they leave your presence? Are they deflated? and lower in esteem. And so those are the pieces there that you should pay really close attention to, especially when you're getting feedback, so that you can put the pieces together for how your interactions are impacting those around you. Number 6 is preparation. And so preparation, as Rene mentioned, our motto is stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And we practice this, but so many clients that I've just in the last probably 6 weeks, I've gotten so many calls because now with, the pandemic and some realizations that people brought with them into the pandemic that are now just showing up. They're not prepared for potential of a job loss, or they now recognize that the company they are working for is not the company that they thought, based on decisions that have been made as a result of the COVID-19 and working conditions. So stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Preparation looks like knowing your market value. And that's internal to your current company, and that's external market value too. So yes, it could be salary, knowing that information, and pay, but it could also be knowing position authority and levels within an organization. Are there executive teams in one company where your experience certainly could fit, where it doesn't fit in another company? So you really need to take a scan of the market. Again, that's the external market or competitors that are in the market, but also internally. Are you next in line for the next promotion or not? We talk to a lot of people who feel like they should be next and they are not, but they're not prepared for what to do next. And it comes down to understanding your market value, and this taps also into the other components of your brand, but having a strong brand can prepare you for your next move at other companies as well. So knowing what you offer, being prepared. One of the great things that I send people on all the time after they've updated a resume, because it is so typical for people not to have updated resumes, but please have an updated resume, but also to apply for positions at different companies so that you're familiar with their requirements, and also go on those interviews. That is key for preparation. And the last component is feedback. So we bring you full circle back to feedback. Feedback is a gift. It is premium, whether it is good, bad, or indifferent. You need feedback and you need to use it. You need to put it into action. And so we've really worked to try to provide you in our 3-pronged approach with the feedback factor. The know, you need to assess, and you need to brand. So this is just a high-level piece of one of our modules. See, Rene is up next to kind of give you some information on next steps.
Okay, yes. So we're at the end of our presentation, and we do have a sheet for you, a document for you to get some points to remember from this presentation. So we want you to click on the link. You can click from your screen, and you can also click in the chat. The second link that we posted is the correct link to get that. And we definitely want you to do that, because as I said at the beginning, our goal for this presentation was for you to get the needed internal clarity. As Tonya said, I mean, we ground our work in mindset. Feedback, yes, we get feedback externally, but we also give ourselves feedback, right? We're always messaging ourselves. And so that is, getting that internal clarity is key to your sustaining any success that you achieve. Then we want you, yes, to be able to assess the external perceptions and then brand yourself, again, from that place of authenticity and power. So we definitely want you to stay connected to us by getting that sheet on how to get and leverage feedback for your success. And also you'll be able to find out what we have coming down the pipe, because this was just one module from our Career Triage course, and it also goes in deeper, much deeper in the topics we talked about today, and includes how to trust yourself, which is huge, how to trust yourself, how to nail an interview. If it is time for you to leave, how do you do that? We also get a lot of questions from people about how to start their own business. So we go and take a much deeper dunk in all things setting yourself up for success. So be sure to reach out, get that worksheet, and stay connected.
Thank you so much. I'm going to start reading some questions that people had. So there's been some discussion about what to do if your current personal branding is not what you want to be. How can you change that?
And you want to take that?
Yes. And so a lot of people talk about reputation, and I think that is very confusing with branding. And that's why I love branding so much more, because reputation is framed by someone else's opinion and what they bring to the discussion about you. With your brand, you can choose right now to show up differently. You control that. It is your message, so you should be the one telling it. What happens is that we sometimes shrink back from being the full you. And so it allows what has been the reputation to continue. So you have to disrupt that train or that pattern. And so that's how you reinvent yourself. You do things differently. And one of the biggest things you could do is to do something outstanding, really do it well. That's how you, and the consistency of doing that, it really changes your brand. So you have to focus in on one of those components. And it really is up to you to assess where you need to start. And we do that kind of work to kind of figure out, okay, where does the repair need to happen? And is there really a need to rebrand, or is it a need to just show up more in one of those components?
And I would like to tag on to say that, as we keep talking about, that's internal work is huge. You've got to believe your own brand. If you don't believe it, nobody else will. And one of the things that we do, this is Gwen's zone of genius, is finding out what your strengths are. Finding out what your strengths are so that you are flowing in those strengths and not making yourself do or show up in a way that you're not authentic, that you don't believe in, as Tonya talked about. So yes, you definitely want to do that internal work.
Thank you. Anita wanted to ask, so our value is kind of subjective. How can we determine what our actual value is?
Gwen, you want to take that?
Sure. I think it really goes back to what both Tonya and Rene just alluded to, and that is knowing yourself enough that you make a compelling impact to yourself and to those around you. So from a branding perspective, who is it? What we want to be one thing, but who are we really? And then Rene alluded to the whole thing around strengths, which I am absolutely a true believer in, because there's something to be said about knowing what you do and knowing what you do well. But knowing what you do well, and knowing what you do well with passion really kind of separates you from the chaff, if you will. So it really is more or less talking, That's really how you determine your value. The more that you assess yourself, or you go through various assessments, the more you get feedback and receive the same things that we've shared with you today, then you are creating this, your purpose puzzle, if you will, in terms of who you really are. So when you look in the mirror, it's not just what you're seeing outwardly, but internally, who you are really speaks to those strengths that you really capitalize on, those talents that are within you, how you cultivate them. And it really speaks to then how do you go out and brand yourself knowing what those things are that you do well. So really determining your value. What do others say? What do you say? And how do you brand yourself? And then really just that whole idea of just continuing to cultivate self. Don't be afraid to ask questions. How did I show up in this instance? What could I have done differently? And stay connected to your strengths. They will absolutely save you, and they will anchor you to who you are and your purpose.
Yes, and don't be afraid to spy on yourself, and to gather that intel and hear the truth. Gwen and I can share many stories. We don't have time now about delusional people. You cannot be in delusion about yourself. Nobody's perfect. We all, like Gwen said, we all have things we do well. We have things we do well that we're passionate about. We have things that we don't do well at all. Be honest with yourself and do as objective a self-assessment as possible. That takes you far down the path of learning what your value is.
Thank you. Our next question is about self-promotion. So someone said that they have a hard time with that, and they feel like as a woman, doing self-promotion would be seen more negatively than her male peers. So what would you suggest?
And so there's an art to it. And, I have two quick things that really you could work on. The first is asking great questions. I have sat in meetings where people have come in. I could see in their face they have questions to ask, but they don't. Or when especially if you're in a forum or a setting at conferences, I see people withholding or not wanting to ask questions. That is so major, because what's the one time when all eyes are on you is when you're asking a question. And so it also shares that you are thinking, and in some cases, you may be developing an idea. So that's one perspective to look at self-promotion without really self-promoting. It's very easy too. So practice asking questions. And that's for people who don't show up, who don't feel comfortable showing up. Push through that and ask your questions. I can remember being in meetings and I had one person, she would beat me to my office to ask a question. We just left the meeting. Why are you coming to my office and you didn't ask it in the meeting? And it was because she didn't have that comfort level. She knew all of the answers and she had other things to add on, but she's just stopped short of asking the question. So that's one, just quick and easy, but it's the art of self-promoting without self-promoting. The other one is being really, really good at storytelling. And so a lot of times we will give information, but it's just half information. And when you're good at telling a story, you set up the character, if there's an antagonist, the whole story, and really be able to give details, insights, add your personality to it, to make it more colorful. But there is an art in storytelling that captivates people and draws attention to you, that allows you to self-promote, again, without saying, I'm great, but you're telling it from the perspective of feeding information about yourself, and how you would resolve problems, how you think, and what you know. So those are just two quick examples. Probably have many more, but it's not exactly when I say self-promote that you're really out bragging. That's not the intent of that.
Yeah, and put yourself out there. The most powerful tool we have is repetition. Typically what we're doing is repeating negative messaging to ourselves, avoiding things. So put yourself in situations that allow you to show up for yourself. Volunteer for that thing that scares you. Join groups, talk to people. The more comfortable you get with, like Tonya said, sharing your story, asking questions. You've got to, if that's something that you have an aversion to, do it more. Do it more. And the more you practice that, you may not ever love it, but you will become more comfortable with it.
And this is Gwen. The one thing that the one other point that I wanted to bring up is oftentimes what I have noticed is that we are in the company of people who will pay you a compliment, and how you brush off that compliment. Yes. Really, to me, really leans itself to how you will marinate in your significance. And I think that's really important because we've got to be able to practice being able to say, thank you so much. I really enjoyed working on that project. It really tapped into my essence of working with spreadsheets or whatever it is, but being able to accept that compliment in a genuine spirit, because that is kind of leans itself into then how will I be able to stand up and not necessarily say, hey, I rocked that project on my own, but being able to have the confidence that when somebody asks the questions or they say something about the project, that you're able to say, I'd like to say that I really enjoyed working on that. I was able to really tap into my strengths, and it was great working with a lot of different other people with diverse strengths or something, but being able to find your voice and being able, and that to me begins when someone else is recognizing the value that you're bringing and how you say that.
I think that is a good place to end our discussion, and I'm going to turn things over to April. She's going to tell us about our next session and then a few other announcements from Momentum.
Okay, I think I'm back on. Thank you, Allie. And let me just say, Allie is our intern from UAB, and she has done extraordinary work putting this series together. She's been working in conjunction with Andrea McCaskey, our Director of Programs, to line up this fabulous list of facilitators, put together these punchy, cool graphics that she's got going on, and hosting us and making sure we all stay on track. So Allie, thank you, thank you, thank you. Andrea, thank you. And of course, Rene and Gwen and Tonya, thank you so much. This was excellent. This was excellent. And it really reinforces a lot of the, what I would call the foundational pillars of what we do in Momentum, which is no surprise because you are all very familiar with the program. In fact, Gwen, you are an alum of the program. So I love that you are able to take these points and put them all together in such a succinct way and share them with such a broad audience. I think we had almost 100 women on the webinar today, which is awesome.
Great.
Yes, that's wonderful.
Thank you. And thank you also for the additional resource. If you haven't done so yet, please click on the link that Allie put into the chat box so that you can get the follow-up handout so that you can continue to implement some of these things in your daily work. I do want to mention that in our next Intentional Tuesday webinar, it is a very practical and very fundamental and very timely topic of women and finance. So there are some areas in which women seem to be kind of socialized to not really take full responsibility, or they are just not naturally attracted to these areas. And it may be some socialization, it may be some biological things. We don't fully understand all of that, but finance is one of those. And so many women abdicate their their power as it relates to the means or the money to their financial advisor or to their husband or maybe still to their father. So anyway, Delenzel is a CEO at Bridgeworth, and that is a financial management firm. And she is going to join us and talk about what she, as a 30-year veteran of in the financial industry, what she would tell her 20-year-old self about women and finance. So she's going to talk about the skills and the special things that you need to be thinking of no matter what point you are in that juncture along your lifetime journey, whether you're married or you're divorced or you're single. She's going to share with you some of the steps you can take today to take control of your financial future. And during this crazy time, it's maybe no better time to get really familiar so that you can learn to anticipate, save, pivot for the future. So I certainly hope you will be able to join us next Tuesday. Please do check the website often as we are posting a lot of these resources out there. And then just one last reminder, we have our application period is open in June through the end of August for Upward Early Career Program. So in that program, we are accepting applications of women that have roughly about 3 to 10 years of professional experience and have demonstrated great potential and desire to grow and learn and lead within their organizations. So our first year of Upward was just phenomenal. This next class has been every bit as exceptional and has just fallen right in and jumped online and done the classes via Zoom, and we've gotten great feedback on those. So I certainly hope that if you are eligible to apply, please do, or if you know somebody in your network who would benefit from the programming that we do in the Upward Early Career Program, you can learn more about that program on our website. So thanks everybody for joining this morning. Please do continue to give us your feedback. You can email us at info@momentumleaders.org. We're gonna leave the webinar running for a little while so that you can type your feedback right into the comments box. And then Allie will be sending out a follow-up email again with additional resources and ways for you to provide feedback. And as always, if you feel compelled to do so, we invite you to visit momentumleaders.org and go to the support section. Momentum is a nonprofit, and we are doing these series for free at no cost to you. But if you have it in your ability to leave a small donation to show what the value of this webinar series is to you, it would be so deeply appreciated, especially during